All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. A good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, wherever you are watching it from, whether it is live or after the fact. And this is another edition of This Week in Pop Culture, the segment every Saturday in which we try to give you the goings on in entertainment, try to give you the spark notes, if you will, of what happened in the past week. And of course, I'm never alone in talking about some of the topics that we will be covering today. So I want to welcome onto the show once again my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Saturday. It
Saturday.
was freezing
It-
last Saturday.
and it's
I
like
got on
bacon.
Hoochie Daddy shorts today. It's
Not
very
hoochie
warm
daddy though.
outside. I got the
Not
Hoochies
hoochie
on.
daddy
I
though.
got the Hoochies on today because it's so
Wow.
hot outside, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
So we don't know what's going on with Mother Nature, but she's got some problems. So we got to talk about these topics before it all
we do.
ends.
We do. So without further ado, I want to hop into the first topic that we're going to talk about today, and that's in the world of basketball. Of course, we have had some stuff happening in the world of basketball when it comes to scoring, but just for right now, we're going to talk about the change of a head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks. We have Adrian Griffin out, of course, as the Bucks head coach, and Doc Rivers in. Just to give you guys, some quick background for each coach. For Adrian Griffin, he was hired back in June and had a record of 30-13 in the 43 game stint that he's had as head coach, which places the Bucks right now second in the East, with their record at home being 20-5 and 11-9 on the road. However, with Doc Rivers coming in. Doc Rivers, has a record, or a resume that's nothing to sneeze at either. He has 1,097 regular season victories, which is ninth all time in NBA history. 111 playoff wins, which is fourth all time, and of course, he won a title with the Celtics in 2008. So, Spillman, share your thoughts. How do you feel about this change where typically when we have a change of head coach is because they're not doing a particularly decent job. I mean, that's not the case here, but I do want to dig into some of the details of what has transpired in a stint. But I'll punt it over to you first.
Well, I'll start out by saying that Griffin, this is his first time as a head coach, and the Bucks had aspirations for a championship this year. That they're hoping to win a championship. Um, you know, they traded for Damian Lillard in the offseason. It's kind of surprising that they didn't get a more seasoned guy to pair with Damian Lillard. As they went away from Bud, their other finals the championship coach. So I'm interested in that. Doc Rivers. So I've seen some people online call him like Bizarro Phil Jackson, where he takes your team of underachievers and underachieves more, rather than takes your team of underachievers and makes them into dynastic champions. So maybe this is the time that he gets over the hump, but I don't know if I like this pick for the Bucks. Like, I'm a Lakers fan, so who cares? But it's kind of crazy to have him in the building. He can never get over the hump with the Clippers. They always underachieved as a team, even though that was the last team to really beat the Warriors before they got good. Um, he was okay with the Celtics. They made two finals appearances, but they did have that collapse in the middle against the Orlando Magic, which was kind of surprising. The Magic were a one-man team. How could you lose to a one-man team, essentially? So I'm just interested in to see what this will do. Um, the Bucks are a good defensive team. They're kind of down on defense this year, which is surprising with the pieces that they have. They did lose Drew Holiday, but it just it's
They
very
did.
it's very intriguing. It's very intriguing. They I don't know. How do you feel about it?
So, I mean, I have a couple of thoughts on it. I will preface it by saying that there have been some incidents that have happened with Adrian Griffin that is cause for pause, if you will.
Hmm.
Just to kind of give you guys an idea, if you guys are not familiar with the history, just this season, they had an incident back in October. If anyone will recall that with top assistant Terry Slots, he had stepped down after being publicly yelled at
Hmm.
by him. And I mean, we had another, incident that happened even with Bobby Portis, Ford, Bobby Portis, who got into a confrontation with Griffin during the in-season tournament with their loss to the Pacers. So, it's not really a good look if you haven't not only folks a part of your coaching staff and your own player that are getting into matters like these with you. I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's just not a good look, and especially if you are stepping in um uh as a coach with a team of this caliber. So they they're aside from Griffin though, and you talked about this. There are things that are cause for pause even with Rivers as well. I mean, I dropped all of those details in terms of his resume, but he has some parts of his resume that ain't that spectacular. Like, he
That
has
emperor, that emperor, he might not have no clothes on, man. He's an
let
emperor,
me
sure,
let
but
me let me break it down for y'all. If y'all don't know, let me break it down for y'all. 10 game 7 losses in his career,
crazy.
three three that he blew that were 3-1 playoff leads, four that were 3-2 playoff leads. And just recently, because of this unfortunate record or stain, if you will, on your resume, he got let go as the Clippers coach in 2020. He got let go as a Sixers coach in 2021. So like, yeah, he has. Don't get me wrong. In terms of his entire body of work, he has a terrific body of work in terms of the winning culture that he has brought to teams overall. If we're looking at his overall body of work,
Hmm.
but recently, no, like it hasn't really. He hasn't really been able to repeat that same success that he has had in his overall career in recent years. So we'll see what happens. I mean, as you said, they have gone down in terms of their defensive efficiency, and I don't feel like a lot of that, while a bit of it can be blamed, I feel, on Griffin, because I still feel as a coach you still need to galvanize your team to be able to still put in the effort to place importance on defense. You still can't deny the fact that you have a player that was a huge component of that defensive prowess who's no longer there.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. It's unfortunate, with a coach to have this type of record to get let go, but I have a feeling that we'll see him back, and placed in provide an opportunity, elsewhere to coach. So
Yeah, I just feel like Adrian was just not a good fit. You said Bobby Portis, and Bobby Portis is one of those guys that the people in the front office listen to and teammates follow. Bobby Portis famously got in a fight with a teammate, and they traded the teammate. They didn't trade Bobby Portis, and you could argue the teammate was better than him. But I feel like it's not just Bobby Portis has had issues with Griffin. You've seen a lot of the Bucks players being frustrated. You saw Brooke Lopez look very frustrated in the last couple of weeks, and he's played on teams like the Brooklyn Nets and stuff. So for him to be frustrated in Milwaukee is incredible. But I just work like no one says Doc Rivers is an offensive genius or a defensive genius. Like there's nothing that you could hang your hat on. He's supposed to be a
I will say, if anything,
personality guy, I would
exactly.
say.
I would say, if anything, he does have a way of being able to deal with large personalities.
Hmm.
He has, recently been placed in situations that I feel that those personalities were
Yeah, it
far
was a loose, like
far more
I've
chaotic
yeah,
than what you would normally have to deal with. So perhaps with the tandem of the Greek Freak and Dame, it might be a little different, because I feel like Dame and Greek Freak are you know different than what you're going to get with Harden and Embiid, or even Harden and Kyrie. So
yeah,
like, yeah, it's going to be, well, no, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm saying Kyrie, excuse me, with with,
wow,
with Harden and with Embiid. Yes.
yeah,
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
yeah.
So switching gears to the world of, I guess we can say, film and television, or the like. We do have a host that is returning to their prior show, and that's none other than John Stewart. John is returning to the Daily Show, and you see the title there that I have, sort of. So it was announced on Wednesday, per Showtime and MTV Entertainment Studios, that he will be returning to the series that he left back in 2015, almost a decade ago, guys.
That's
Um,
crazy.
so a show that he hosted for 16 years. However, instead of hosting the show, per the story, instead of hosting the show 5 days a week, he's only going to be hosting on Mondays, starting in February, and for Tuesday through Friday, he will have there'll be other comedians that will be taking over the hosting duties while he continues to do the show, or say while he does the show as its executive producer. So if just to give you guys just a little bit of background, as I said, he left the show back in 2015. In that time, unless if you guys are not aware, Trevor Noah, of course, took over in 2015, and then he left recently at in the towards the end of 2022. So he had been doing the show for 7 years, and in that time, just like you heard just now, they typically had just a rotation of comedians taking over as hosts, as a guest host in that time. But now we officially can say, starting next month, we'll have Jon Stewart returning at least one day of the week officially, but he will be a part of the show entirely, even if it is not in front of the camera. So you hear this, Spillman, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm happy that they finally found a host. Famously, on the Emmys last week, or the middle of last week, um, uh, Roy Wood mouthed when they were on the podium accepting an award that please hire a host. So that's good news for the show. It's always felt like Jon Stewart's show. Trevor Noah was good in the chair, but him being not from the states and being a outsider looking into the U.S. politics, it never really seemed to me. It never really seemed like a good fit with Trevor Noah. I think Trevor Noah is really funny, but I don't feel like he captured what it was to be a political commenter like Jon Stewart. Like, because when Jon Stewart, which was almost impossible for him to fill, because Jon Stewart was a trusted news person in the vein of a Walter Cronkite when he retired, which is something that is hard to follow up on, and especially with someone as unknown as Trevor Noah. Um, when they moved into that seat. So it's very interesting to see that they've moved back to Jon Stewart. It's surprising that I understand that he left when he left. People get tired of things. You get to a point in life sometimes where you're like, what am I
Creatively
doing
still,
here?
yeah, starts to become
Yeah.
creatively still.
Yeah,
So
you got stagnation is a thing that people deal with. So I can see how he got stagnant. But to me, it's just, I feel like Honestly, I feel like they should have given it to Roy Wood. I think Roy Wood would have been a better host. I think Roy Wood, having hosted the press corps dinner, the nerd prom, having such a pulse on so many things political like that. I think Roy Wood should have gotten that job, and it's kind of sad that he didn't. Then they went backwards instead of moving forward. So maybe this is a death knell for this show because once you start getting people that used to work here 10 years ago, you've run out of ideas. So to me, we'll see. How do you feel about it?
So you brought up the point of when you're going backwards, so to speak, and rehiring that it feels like you're running out of ideas. But I would I would respectfully disagree, and I'll say reason being is this. First, I'll start by going into how I picture it actually went. Where I find it interesting that it was highlighted that he would be executive producing. What that tells me is that okay, you gonna ask me back? If you gonna ask me back, then I'm gonna
Hmm.
have far more control over the show than I had, before. So just so we don't get it twisted on that, I'm gonna make, I need to be on as executive producer because I want to have, far more say, on the show, and I want to make sure that that is the case. So we have that, and then additionally, if we're talking about the only doing one day a week, that also tells me, okay, you want to ask me back? Cool. Not only will I have more control over the show, you want to pay me a crap ton of money just to do one day of the show, and I'm not even going to work the entire week. I'm gonna work part of the show since y'all so pressed to have me back.
Why
So,
is he there? That's crazy. It's a
but
daily show.
but
It's not a
but
Monday show.
but I will say this, by still having, that component from Tuesday to Friday, it is still allows him to have his voice within that show and then be able to collaborate who with whoever is working on that show, but it allows them to bring in fresh energy Tuesday through Friday. So it still allows them to kind of have a hybridization of what they've already been doing over the past year, where they, from what I understand, they have had guest hosts come in, but
They've
at
had a lot of
least
them.
yeah, but I'm saying, but at least, you'll still have that voice behind it all that a lot of people are accustomed to for them to be able to collaborate together to do a show versus, just having, a guest host and not still having, that feel and that energy of the Daily Show. You were talking about Trevor Noah just earlier, and to Noah's credit, like you said, it was a very I would say it's a very difficult position to follow up a host like that, and to still be able to step in there and to do a terrific job. I mean, there's no fault of his that the show, I feel, didn't really reach the same heights as that time in which Stewart was hosting the show. But I feel like placed in anyone else's hands, even with Wood, as you were mentioning before, it still would have been a difficult position to be in to follow behind Stewart. So you know, more power to Noah. In that time, he still, was able to establish himself. I feel in those 7 years, and to be able to uh, establish momentum for himself for whatever he does next. So, I wouldn't cry, Trevor Noah wouldn't cry him a river. He's doing terrific. But I will say this is that it's cool to have Stewart back. Um, but I am looking forward to how that's gonna look for that Tuesday through Friday time, those Tuesday through Friday times in which you have other people, because now that you have Stewart back on Mondays, at least one day of a week, you know, now that you have that host back that a lot of people really enjoyed during that prior stint of Daily Show, are they going to be open enough to accept having someone else from Tuesday through Friday? Like, are you going to have situations where the show is doing really well on Mondays just because you have Stewart there, and is it going to tank Tuesday through Friday? That's my only concern. Now that they actually have that person there in that spot where they're like, okay, we have him here on Monday. Why can't we just have him here the whole week? So we'll see what happens with that. That'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on. But do you
It's
have any
kind
questions before we
it's
move on?
kind of like it's kind of like when your mom your parents split, but somehow your dad gets your mom to come back in the house and
Mm,
take care of
mm,
you sometime in the week,
wow.
and it's like,
Wow.
Mom, you've moved on. Like, why are you back
Wow.
here? You can't come back. You guys split up.
That is
Why
quite a
don't we have
comparison.
why don't we have this, the marriage was over. The marriage was over. Why are we rehashing this? We've seen how you guys argue. We've seen what happens when you don't
Wow.
listen. So to me, I just feel like I'm sure it's been a ratings bust for the last year with these rotating hosts because none of the hosts ever got going and they never had a voice with the show. Also, Trevor Noah had a voice in the show, but the voice was Trevor Noah and his experiencing America for the first time, and they could only do that for so long because he's lived here for 7 years. It's not so much that he's a stranger about with the U.S. culture. So for it to be such a political show, um, I just don't understand how Stewart came back to the show. I really think they should have gone in another direction, get a different comedian, someone who could sit in the chair every day of the week. Because, like I just said, Mom's back, but Mom's not back. She's not here every day, so she's not being Mom. She's a guest host just like anyone else. It's
But I
still the
guess
same
folks can argue
chaos.
that he's still technically there because he's still working behind the scenes and still
Sure.
working alongside with the.
Puff Daddy's an executive producer. Does he be pushing the buttons on every single song? No, he does not. He just gets a check because his name is on everything. We know how that goes. All in the
Fair enough.
video, all on the Daily Show, making silly voices.
Fair enough. Fair.
Yeah.
So, switching back to the world of sports, we had some news that happened locally with us in the
hmm
nation's capital, and that is around the coaching change with the Wizards. Wes Unseld Jr., who was the most recent coach of the Washington Wizards, is going to be moving to the Wizards front office in what was described in a story with ESPN as a advisory role, and Brian Keefe is going to be taking over as the Wizards interim head coach. Now, Keefe was an assistant coach during Wes Unseld's Jr.'s stint, and just to give you guys just some quick rundown with each coach. Unseld was coaching for his third season with the Wizards, and in that time had a 77 and 130 record, which also
That
includes
that's two to one,
hold
ladies and
on,
gentlemen. That's two to
hold
one.
on, which also includes, I'm not finished yet, which also includes a 7 and 36 record this season. Um, he just to give you some further history with Keith. As I said, he was the assistant coach in that stint, in that time, that Wes Unseld Jr. was the coach. Now, if the name Unseld sounds familiar for you guys, Unseld is of course the son of Wes Unseld Sr., who he himself, of course, was a central figure with the Wizards, then known as the Bullets, and
The greatest player in franchise history.
led them to the championship in 1978. He of course later served as a coach and a general manager, and he brought on Junior as a scout. I want to say, let me see, make sure I have this down. Yeah, he brought him in as a scout following his graduation in 1997. So Spillman, as I said, kind of similar. It's funny how we have just a difference just now of what we were talking about with the coach change at the top of our show to this story here. And this one makes sense, but I have some further thoughts on.
And this don't make no sense. This makes
Wait,
no
wait, wait.
sense. This
No, no, no,
makes
no,
no
no,
sense, ladies and
no.
gentlemen. I'm
I'm
not going to let
saying
him say that.
I'm no, 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 no. I'm saying it makes sense due to what's trying to be what they're trying to do here, or what was done here. The way that they worded it is suspect, but the fact that he is out of the coaching position does make sense. The fact that they're saying, "Oh, we're placing him in a front office role," what that tells me is that, oh yeah, like we can't put you in this coaching role, chief, but because of the legacy there, you know, we trying to save face and place you here in the front office. That's what that tells me. Like it seems like because of that relationship, you know, with the Unsealed family, that you know they're trying to save face of, you know, still keeping him involved as they worded in the story, because like based off of what we got from the years as a coach, like it didn't turn out, you know, the way that, you know, people had anticipated and the way they hoped. But I'll put it over to you. Go ahead.
This kind of shenanigans is why I do not root for the basketball team that plays on 7th Street in Washington D.C. This is why I don't root for this team. How did he get another job when he didn't win 10 games in 4 months? He hasn't won double-digit games. They traded for a player that came from a championship that had championship medal. Your Warriors, sure, y'all sold high and bought low with him, but the Wizards should have been able to put together something. That roster is a terrible roster. They lose games all the time. Like
All the
they
time.
lose game, they lose games like they're trying to like move
I
the
mean,
team to another
you have a
city.
lot of losses there where you're just like scratching your head, like how, like even if you put in it, like just putting in effort, like it would have been a competitive game. So like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know, man.
I just don't understand it. I get that his name is Wes Unseld Jr., but they've let him work there for 30 years almost. You can't fire somebody just because they worked there for 30 years. He hasn't been good. Like the coach in the Bucks got fired because people were disagreeing with him sometimes. They were number 2 in the conference, and they just let him go. They got him out of the room.
Well,
To me,
to be fair, and
there's nothing
I
fair. There's
understand what
no,
you're.
no,
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 no, no, no.
no,
Hold on,
no.
I'm basing this off of business and contract. So not all of a sentimentality. So according to the story that, and this is out of the Washington Post, he has his contract up through 2025. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, through the 24-25 season. So, you know, perhaps, you know, there might be this might be an opportunity to see what can be done between, you know, this season and next season, and see what is accomplished in that time. But, you know, there is an opportunity there for them to, you know, change what they're doing in the front office, and to, you know, move on from Unseld Jr. Following next season. But at least right now he is contracted up through next year.
You see how he's got his hand on his head like that? Like I don't even know how I'm still
Oh,
at
that was
this
on purpose.
job.
That was on purpose.
I don't even
That
know
was on
how
purpose.
I
He's like,
still got
come
this
on, I don't
job.
know, bro.
He's a nepo baby. That's what you call this. He's a nepo baby. He's got a
I don't
famous
know,
name
bro.
with a junior on the end. He's a nepo
That's why
baby.
I got Brian. That's why I got Keith in there. Like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna take
Yeah,
the
man.
reins
I just
now.
don't understand how he had a job this year. I don't understand how he had a job this year. You know, the Wizards are a terrible franchise. They're a terrible franchise. Like I'm looking at it online. It says they're the 30th in the league in rebounding. They're the 30th in opponents' points per game. So they let opponents they other team averages 124.7 points a game. Do you know how ridiculous that is? Do you know how ridiculous that is?
That's what
That means that like you have to score 30 plus every quarter. 31 points a quarter against the Wizards. That's crazy. In 12 minutes of basketball. That is crazy. Usually you're like, oh, we scored 25 this quarter. We're on a good little truck. But they've scored 31 points a game a quarter. That is terrible. Terrible. So I don't know how he still has a key card that works in that building. Like, this is why it's so frustrating to people who live in this area that Ted wants to move the team across the river. Because it's like, Ted, what is moving the team across the river going to do if you keep doing stuff like this? How do you expect to sell tickets if the team is trash? I don't care what the deal is on the splits. You've put out a
product.
subpar product for years. For years they've been having these subpar products. So to me, it's just I can't see how anybody could look at this team and think that they're serious anything. They might as well change the mascot to the Generals because that's how futile they are. They should be the Washington Generals. Like they should just play the old basketball song. They should just play that because it's just really terrible that they actually put these on TV. Like it's almost criminal that we allowed Ted Leonis to talk bad about downtown DC like he has when this is the kind of stealing he's doing. Wes Unseld is doing more crime than anybody on 7th Street. He's stealing millions of
Wow.
dollars. Millions of dollars. Can you imagine that? All right, Brandon, we want you to do a job. You have 82 chances to do 81 chances, 82 chances to do something, and this is what we want you to do. No, that's not how it works. This is just crazy. And it's not like the Wizards don't have decent players. Sure, they don't have a superstar player. They don't have a number one
They can
A
still be
guy.
respectable. They
They
can
can be
still be
respectable. We've
respectable.
seen so many teams without a 1A guy in the Eastern Conference, especially. They're always at the bottom of their division. It's just, I'm sorry to get incensed like this, ladies and gentlemen, but
Nah,
this
get in
this
sense.
is
This is ridiculous. Get in sense.
exactly why I cannot root for this team. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen a score where I have friends who will text me and try to gloat about their Wizards. They did that for the first 7 days of the NBA season. They haven't done it in 4 months. It's been since October since I've seen anyone say anything positive about those losers. I'm just really sad because it's like it's the whole organization. And it bleeds into the Capitals, if we're going to be honest. It bleeds into the Capitals because there's no way that uh, Alav- uh, 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 uh,
Ovechkin.
Ovechkin should only have one championship. He's one of the greatest scorers in the history of the NHL. He only has one championship. It's because of dumb front office things just like this that Tad does. Tad wants to retread. He keeps putting retreads on the tires. Just buy some new tires, Ted. These wheels don't work. You got to put new wheels on the car sometimes. It's just, I'm incensed. I'm truly frustrated that he still has a job. I didn't really like that they picked him in the first place. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's part of the family. But truth be told, Wes Unseld wasn't that great of a general manager or a coach. He was good. He was a great player. He's the last player to get an MVP and a Rookie of the Year the same year. But that was 70 years ago almost. That was in 1969. That was so long ago that they weren't color games. So to give his son this much rope that he has 30 years with the organization is crazy. The Bulls would never do this with the Jordan sons or the Pippen sons. They would never do anything this stupid. There's no team. There's very few teams that would allow, like, even people are saying like LeBron right now can play in the NBA still, and most people don't think that Bronny's going to make it to the league because we all see that you have to actually be good to do this stuff because they're putting this on TV. We get to see you be terrible every day. It's one thing to be terrible at a job. Let's say I own a sandwich shop and my son just goes in there, clocks in, and just hollers at girls all day. That's one thing because it's my sandwich shop. I can do what I want to. No one sees the sandwich shop, but the minute it goes on Hell's Kitchen or something, they start making changes because so it's like, oh no, wait, we're on Hell's Kitchen, but I've got a helicopter over me because the police are looking for me because I'm committing a M word on the Wizards front office for these decisions.
Hey, yeah.
But
End of rant. End of rant.
that's I
There we
just
go. There we go. There was a rant there.
so frustrating, guys. It's so frustrating.
But no, I hear you, man. Just to wrap up of as you said, the product of what has been provided, you know, by the Wizards over years have been subpar. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can count probably off of your hand. There were a couple of years here and there in terms of the errors that we've had with certain players where the Wizards have been decent. If I'm thinking of like the Gilbert Arenas,
The
Larry Hughes.
first two Gilbert Arenas years.
Yeah, Gilbert Arenas and the Larry Hughes era. Well, if we're thinking about, I guess a couple of years ago, a couple of years back, when we had a healthy John Wall and Bradley Beal, where they were playing decently. So I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens underneath the Brian Keefe era now that he will be taking over or is has taken over as the interim coach, and then we'll also see what happens with Wes Unseld Jr. As I say, he has a contract up through next year. Who knows what will happen between now and then in that time. All right. So, what you saw in the title just now, and we were talking about it last week, and this is in the world of film. This is about of course, the Academy Awards, the Oscars, if you will. On Tuesday, they did have an announcement of uh, those films that were being nominated. Just to give you a rundown of some of, or should say a breakdown, if you will, Oppenheimer led with 13 nominations. Poor Things followed close behind with 11 nominations. Killers of the Flower Moon nabbed 10 nominations, and Barbie secured 8. However, there were some, components in there, and I want to, dive in, a little bit, Spillman, of some of the snubs that happened. But just in general, just from what the nominations that we did get, what were your thoughts?
I think that the nominations that we got were pretty standard fare for the Oscars. I don't feel like there was anything that was outrageous. Obviously the people have controversies. We'll get to the controversies a little bit later, but you know, um, the Oscars generally likes things like stories that the Oscars really should be called the based on a true story awards or um, add a book adaptation awards because really those are the two things that really do great at the Oscars. If you adapt a book very well, they'll give you an Oscar for that, unless it's a book with pictures in it. So they don't do comic books. Um, so to me, I mean, it is what it is. I feel like the people that are nominated are the people that get nominated every year. The kinds of stories that they nominate are the same stories pretty much. Um, so to me, it's just it's kind of yeah. The excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, but the people on the internet obviously are frustrated with what they didn't do for some people. But to me, I just feel like um, what what truly did they expect? Because even the film that's getting the most buzz for getting quote unquote snubbed still got 8 nominations. So it's just like what's really the frustration here? What do you feel, Brandon?
So, you mentioned the fact that the film in which a lot of people are saying they were snubs for got 8 nominations, but I feel like it's just uh the nature of what was nominated and what didn't get nominated. So I mean, while it's great that it got 8 nominations, I feel like for a lot of people, it feels like those 8 nominations are kind of like more of like a tap on the back, more so than something that's going to actually get recognized, especially for that particular film and what should have been and there's no slight against those parts that did get nominated. It's terrific that it got those artists did get nominated. How, but I will say that even though it got 8 nominations, you could arguably say the film could have secured more than that. So I'm not going to go over every single nomination, but I do want to go over some of the ones in which
Let's
folks.
go over the marquees. Do you have the
Yeah,
marquee ones up?
I do. I do.
Okay, let's go over some of the
Let
marquees.
me put these up. So if we're looking at the supporting, actor in supporting role, a lot of these were not shocking. We have Robert De
Hmm.
Niro, we have Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, and we there were some surprises in here. We had Ron Gosling and we had Sterling K. Brown. American Fiction. Haven't had a chance to see it yet. I've heard a lot of great things, so I will do plan on catching that before um, the actual show. And good on Ron Gosling, to be able to secure a nomination for that for his role in Barbie. If we're moving on to nominees for actress in a supporting role, we have Emily Blunt, of course, not shocking there. We have Danielle Brooks, for Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie. Awesome that she was able to secure that supporting role. I know there were folks that were saying that they didn't anticipate that would get nominated, but it's awesome again that she was in fact nominated. Jodie Foster, of course, and of course, Divine Joy Randolph for the holdovers. So I mean, you have some that are in there, and folks in there that were that are not surprises, and then you have some cool surprises in there, with Ferrer that weren't anticipated. But let me get into some of the other nominations for actor in a leading role. A lot of these folks again are not shocking. You have Bradley Cooper. People have been raving about Bradley Cooper's role in Maestro for a while now. Paul Giamatti, one of my favorite actors. The Holdovers, terrific film, and then of course Cecilia Murphy, not shocking for Oppenheimer for the title character there, and then one of my other favorite actors as well, Jeffrey Wright, getting recognized for American Fiction, but to have Coleman Domingo for Rustin, that was awesome to see him there. But I think the big thing that folks were talking about was just that idea that we didn't have Margaret Robbie being nominated for her role as Barbie. We had, as
I'm going
you
to be
uh,
controversial here,
hold on,
though.
hold on. You
I,
have hold on, hold on. You have all your other actors nominated for their performances, but you don't have the one person in there that the role of Barbie was not a easy role to do. You're bringing
I
a
don't know
lot.
about
You
that,
you
bro.
bring hold on. You're bringing a lot of components there's some comedic elements that you're bringing to it, but there are also some dramatic moments there as well. And to be able to fluidly move from one part of that role to another part of that role is not an easy feat that I feel like not a lot of actresses can pull off. And the fact that Margot was able to pull that off is a testament to her talent as an actress. And she is the anchor. While there are great performances from other folks in her ensemble, to recognize other folks in her ensemble but not recognize her. And yes, I know a lot of people are saying, well, it was also nominated for Best Picture, but I mean, it just seems very glaring, especially ironically in lieu of what Barbie is about, to have everyone else nominated and not have her nominated. Let me get through the last couple, and then I'll punt it over to you. I know you wanted to
Okay, yeah,
get
yeah,
into
yeah.
it.
That's fine.
So nominees for directing, we have Justine, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, Justine Trite for Anatomy of a Fall. We have Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, who this is actually historical. He actually is going to be the oldest person on record to be nominated in as a director at the Oscars as it stands now. Of course, we have Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. Again, apologize if I'm butchering your name, Yargos Lathimos for Poor Things, and then Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. There are a couple of films in here that it's not shocking to see them here, but it's cool to see The Zone of Interest in there. It's not shocking to see Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killer of the Flower Moon, but it's always awesome to see films that you didn't anticipate being in there. However, I will say it is glaring to not see the a nod for directing for Barbie, because even in that role, the director for Barbie, it was to be able to pull that off and to be able to man that ship, so to speak, and not get recognized for it is, I feel, again, an irony in that, based off of what Barbie, entailed and what was about. To not
Yeah.
have Greta Gerwig not get recognized for her directing in that category is a little shocking. Now, Best Picture, you have American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest. So I know a lot of folks are saying, well, we do have Barbie recognized here in the Best Picture category. Well, if we're recognizing its accomplishment as a film among all of these other films, we need to also recognize the specific artists that are that have a hand in being able to shape it into a nominee as Best Picture, and to not recognize the director is very strange. But go ahead, Spillman.
Well, I will say that obviously, um, the Oscars are a certain kind of film, and I did just say that they like to have stories where it's based on a true story, which a lot of the movies here are, especially the movies that were selected for Best Director or Best Actor or Best Actress. A lot of those movies did take place in that kind of a vein of a story. Um, I think that I did appreciate Margot Robbie's performance in Barbie, but there were times that I felt like Margot Robbie was almost like um, she was the protagonist, but she was almost like the co-protagonist, because the movie really felt more like it was about Ken than it was about Barbie to me. Um, I think that the fact that there was no singular Barbie in this movie, I think that since there were so many Barbies, that it was kind of hard to nail down, because Barbie was almost like it was almost like Barbie, like in story structure, it's like man versus man, man versus environment, man versus self, or man, that way. I think that in the way that they structured the Barbie movie, that it was man versus the environment, and the environment was Barbie. Like, it was a person who was Ken, really, because Barbie only ventured out into the world because of America Ferrera's crisis. Like, they
Spoiler.
did have, I mean, sure.
That
A
was meant to.
billion people, a billion people saw that movie. The people that saw it, that were going to see it, have seen this movie, I feel like. So I feel like we can talk about it. It's an Oscar nomination now. But I just feel like, sorry for the spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. You're right. Sorry for the spoilers. But I just feel like I understand how they could have got a snub. I don't understand, like, how people are just making, not seeing that it's a possibility. Like, snubs happen every year. You know, some of my favorite films that were very artistic and even fit the category of based on a true story or adapt a book adaptation, like the Malcolm X movie many years ago, famously. Um, the Oscars generally snubs these kind of movies, like, you know, so it's surprising that they snubbed this movie as it was so successful. But I mean, I feel like it's going to win Picture of the Year because this, you know, the Picture of the Year. I mean, like the movie of the year, like the movies of the year were the Barbenheimer. That's what we've said for years, for the whole year was Barbenheimer. That's all everybody talked about was Barbenheimer. They came out the same weekend. They're kind of juxtaposed men versus women, which is really flashy and good to chew on. But um, you know, obviously to have that, she should have gotten a nod for both she, Greta, and Margot. But I do understand how um, people can see like the Barbie movie is kind of a paint by the numbers production. You know, I feel like the big uh, excuse me, the big one, the like the biggest numbers in the movie to me, like the person that had the most character development was really Ken. Ken had the character development. I feel like Barbie started the movie. She had a crisis, but really her crisis was um like it wasn't really solved. Like she didn't really solve her crisis. Like they just went back to being Barbie. It's not like she found herself in a way. Like maybe she found herself in the way that they were dealing with Ken in that situation, and they were appreciating him more. But I don't feel like that was character development for her. I felt like that was more character development for Ken. So I don't know. It's interesting. This is the thing about these kind of things is these are awards that don't have like stats or anything because like if you look at stats you would say oh of course it was a nomination a movie that like these characters should have got nominations because you know she played the biggest female character in the biggest movie of the year so how isn't she the best actress so it's one of those kind of things because it's so subjective and the Oscars are not on anything other than this is what the Oscars likes and it's not you know, it's not like, oh, clearly you won the most games this year, so it's not quantifiable in that way. So I don't know.
So I'll break down a bit of what you said, and I feel like there's without you even realizing it, there's something there in what you said, and that's just the idea that historically, and this is going back to history too, if we're talking about Oscars and Academy Awards, is that it's unfortunate when the whether we're talking about the well, I'll say more so the Oscars that there is and I don't want to say a snobbishness because that's too strong of a word, but like there is it's unfortunate how when films do really well, I feel that are very successful, that I feel like sometimes without it even really being stated that works against them,
Oh,
and
for
that
sure.
like a lot of those that are making the decisions of or playing a role in those decisions of what's getting nominated, they kind of have that stance of, oh, well, this was a very niche film, and because it was very niche, we need to, nominate it. And I feel like we still have that attitude going where if a film is like a cultural phenomenon, that sometimes that's held against it when there are components in it that make it a terrific film, and even without it being a major a major blockbuster that made tons of money, that it has components of it that are undeniably awesome. And so we have plenty of blockbusters out there that it's just
Ain't
it
sniffed the Oscars.
no, but I'm saying there are plenty of blockbusters that are out there, and we can both attest to this. They're fun, but they're not Oscar, Oscar worthy films. Like they're basically like amusement park rides, or they're it's just there for fun to turn your brain off for a couple of hours, and it's a lot of fun. Some of them make tons of money, and then beyond that, you'll probably forget about it in a couple of years, right? Or you'll probably
Hmm.
forget about it that year. But as I said, it's unfortunate to have films that not only that do well, and because of it doing well, that's held against it, and because of that, there's a certain irony in that too, because of that attitude, the Oscars have been trying to find various ways to ensure that they're getting viewership. And a lot of people have been talking about how some films have been placed in there just to bring more eyes upon the show, and it's not because the Oscars necessarily wants to nominate it. They're doing it for the sake of getting viewership, because there have been instances of that even with some comic book films where they deservedly needed to get nominated,
For
but I
sure.
feel that they wouldn't have gotten nominated in any other circumstance, only because they wanted to get viewership. Black Panther was a terrific film. It, should have gotten nominated as Best Picture. I'm not, that's
You
not.
can't tell me when's the last time a horror movie got nominated for anything at the Oscars.
So I mean, I don't know. Like it's unfortunate to have situations like this, because I respect what you mentioned before about what transpired in Barbie. I understand where you're coming from,
But you
but
disagree?
I respectfully disagree, only
Yeah.
in that if we're talking about Barbie, if you're talking about your title character that has to carry the entire film,
Hmm.
and it's intrinsically centered around that character, and that journey that character takes, and what that character has to go through, and to be able to effectively do that. Barbie could have easily been a run by the numbers. I know you said it was run by the numbers, but like I feel like it could have been a run by the numbers film that didn't have any deeper meaning or didn't have anything to say. It could have just been like uh like we were talking about before, a blockbuster film that was just something that it was forgettable after you saw it after a couple of weeks. And it wasn't that. It had far more to say, and you can't accomplish that goal without the very folks that those very artists that shape have a hand in shaping that, whether it's recognizing your lead, especially if you're recognizing everyone else in the ensemble, and also represent, if it also means recognizing your captain of the ship, the person who has to lead all of these artists under one common goal in doing the film as a director. So just my thoughts.
I agree. I can concede that, obviously. But to me, just because you had the, like, that's never been what the Oscars did. Like the Oscars has never given awards to people because they carried the biggest movie.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It's not. It has. I feel like that's just a something that has transpired with that film, and I feel like it's not. It shouldn't just be. It's not being recognized. That's missing the point. It's not being recognized. It not being recognized shouldn't be because of it. What you're saying of it making the most money. That's besides the point. It
Well, I'm not even talking about the most money, but I just mean, like, it's just, I feel like the Oscars are like, we don't care what is barely in front of us. Like, somehow, sometimes when I hear you talking about Michael Jordan versus LeBron James, it's a similar argument.
gosh, here we go.
You're like, yeah, Michael Jordan's better, but LeBron, like, people will say Michael Jordan scores more than LeBron, and you're like, actually, LeBron has never scored under 20. Michael scored under 20 a few times. Like those are two different things. Like, it's different stuff like that. So it's
But it's
like,
a closed argument. I'm gonna close it immediately. You already know where I'm going. It's a closed argument. Every finals he played in, he won.
he
Can
didn't play
LeBron
in every
say that?
finals though. He didn't play in every
Listen to
finals.
what I'm saying.
No, no, no,
Every
no, no. You're not listening
every
to what I'm saying. He did not
oh,
play in every
sorry.
finals.
Every
He got
finals.
swept in the first round a
uh,
lot of times. You
Listen to what
can't.
I'm saying.
He missed the
Every
playoffs entirely with the franchise we were
Still
talking
not
about
listening.
earlier.
You're still not
LeBron's
listening.
never done that.
Still not listening. Every finals that he has stepped foot on, every finals that he has played in, he has won. Can LeBron say every finals? I know LeBron has 10, right?
Hmm.
Props to LeBron. He got to 10 finals. Has he won each of those finals that he entered? Yes or
He's
no?
been to more finals. That's all that
Didn't
matters
answer
to
my
me.
question. Yes or no?
Been to more finals.
Didn't answer the question. Yes or no?
Been to more
Yeah,
finals.
exactly. Exactly.
Never been swept in the never been swept.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all I gotta say. Exactly.
But that's exactly what I mean. You're the
Exactly.
Oscar committee right now. You're not looking at the truth of things and you're just framing it for what you want to frame it for. Instead of saying, you know what? You're right. He has only been to 6 finals. That is less finals. So we should recognize someone who's been to more as a greater player because it's harder to get to the finals than to not get to the finals, right?
Denial.
That's
Denial.
not denial. That's not denial. You're denying the fact that he didn't make the finals all the time. 6 finals is less than 10. That's
Yeah,
just facts.
but I'm saying this. I'm saying this though. I recognize again.
Yeah, you recognize,
I
but the Oscar
recognize.
committee does not.
I
Yeah.
recognize the greatness of LeBron. I undoubtedly recognize the greatness of LeBron, but I do also understand history in that in facts. I understand facts that LeBron did not win every championship that he stepped foot into.
No, that's not. Michael Jordan didn't win
Jordan
every
did.
championship. He
By
just
the
won
way,
every championship round he stepped into.
by
When you're
the
in the
way,
playoffs, you're in the championships, but you
by
lost
the
in a
way, I
previous
wait.
round.
I wait.
That's
By the
crazy.
way, he did a three-peat,
Hmm.
left, and came back and did
That's
another
right.
three-peat.
If he didn't quit, I would say he's more of
Left.
a goat
Who
than
does
if he
that?
did quit.
Oh man, I'm
Quitters.
gonna take a break. Yeah, I'm gonna come back up in here and win these next. I'm gonna
Mm-mm,
win
mm-mm,
three more when I
mm-mm,
get back up in there.
mm-mm, mm-mm,
It's all good. I'm just going to
mm-mm,
ease back up into the
mm-mm. To
after a
bring
couple
back
of
another analogy, Mom, you left us. Why you back here just doing part-time stuff? We need you here every day. You can't just get up and leave. Don't quit on us. You quit on us.
wow, this is getting very dark. I don't know where that comparison is
That's
coming
right.
from,
That's right.
but I'm gonna wind this back. I'm gonna
Let's
wind this
go.
back.
Let's go.
Is
But
that
it's sad
it?
that they got snubbed. Honestly,
But I
I
will
do
say
think
this.
that they
I
should have
will say
gotten
this.
a
It
nomination
will.
for sure.
I was gonna say I will say this. It will be interesting to see with all the hoopla of this snub and not getting the recognition to see how the results of this year's award show how it turns out. Where we'll be
Hmm.
back here and talking about who won and come and
Hmm.
find out that Barbie ends up winning Best Picture,
They're
and
going to win
then
Best Picture.
hold on, that Barbie ends up winning Best Picture, and then like Oppenheimer or one of those other films end up getting Best Director, because
Yeah,
you see that a lot of times
you always
where
see that.
where
You get Defensive Player of the Year award or something.
because something happens, it gets split. Like you get one person who wins Best Director, and you get someone else who wins, Best Picture. So I'm curious to see, and I'm gonna call it now that ends up happening. That Barbie, because of everything that has gone down, there's
Hmm.
going to be such a flood of those that artists, whoever, feel some type of way about what transpired with that nomination with Best Director, that Barbie's going to end up winning Best Picture. I'm calling it
Hmm.
now. I'm gonna
Yeah,
do a short on this.
yeah.
Calling it now.
All right, there you go.
Nostradamus here.
We're gonna
So
book it.
right,
Mm.
right. Barbie's going to end up winning Best Picture, and I would say Oppenheimer is going to end up winning Best Director.
I
That
can
you
see
want to
that.
end up I was going to say either two. Either Oppenheimer wins Best Director, so Nolan's going to end up winning Best Director, or because of history that you may end up getting it for Scorsese because historically he would be the
No, I
oldest
think they're gonna get the women. He might get it for the
because
oldest,
he's
but
the
they're gonna give
oldest
it to
nominee thus far.
Gladstone. I think Lily Gladstone is going to get it for Killers of the Flower Moon because famously Marlon Brando had that
And I didn't. I was
time.
speaking of that, I didn't even mention that, and this was surprising because Oscars love him is DiCaprio didn't get
Hmm.
nominated. Like
Well,
so
he was a good supporting actor, but really, De Niro was the one in that movie to me. I feel like De Niro, because he was just, he was a
despicable,
pawn. De Niro was.
despicable.
He was like a really bad, like a really shisty basketball coach in that movie. Like, you gonna get my son where? How are we gonna get my son into school? He don't have no grades. Don't worry about his grades, man. We're gonna get him into the school. Don't worry about that. Well, where's he gonna live? He doesn't have. I'll organize some housing for your child. I'll take care of him. Like, he was like that. It was very diabolical. So yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up our show, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of This Week in Pulp Culture. Before I give you my rundowns, I'm going to punt it over to Spills. Go ahead, sir.
I just want to say we didn't talk about it this week because it's just kind of a thing that happened.
Oh
But
yeah,
they stopped playing defense in the NBA. Like
they
we've
did.
been,
They did.
like
They
I
absolutely
talked
did.
about the Wizards letting people score 36 a game, a quarter. That's everybody lets them do it. We had two guys score 70, two guys scored in the 60s and lost the game. How do you do that? How do you score 60 points and lose the game? Michael Jordan. But I'm off of my horse. You can see me on
Wow.
Instagram at Truly Spill. So hit me up. You got to pass the ball. It's a team game. It's no I in team. Is what I'm saying.
So I want to thank Spills for hopping on, and I want to also mention 6 titles, 6-0, 2 3-peats. I just want to drop that little side note there. And I also want to drop being a 2-way player and not just a 1-way player. But be that as it may, I'm your host.
Passing is two ways too. I got to pass. Can't just shoot. Can't just shoot.
But I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on X at Brandon Choi ENT, and of course
First try this
on
week. Good job.
on Instagram. And then I do want to give just an announcement of some things that we do have going on. Don't forget that we do have a show later on today at 4 o'clock where I have my friend Bill Arbers Jr. hopping on and talking about some of the projects that he has done with Criminal Minds and with Circus of the Dead. That's the 10th anniversary of both roles. One that he did, like I said, on Criminal Minds as the unsub, and then also with his role in Circus of the Dead, which actually has some updated news recently that we're going to get into today. So be on the lookout for that. As I said, that's going to happen at 4 o'clock today. And then we do have some other news. We do have Jamie Nash, a friend to the show, Jamie Nash, as well as Eduardo Sanchez, who will be hopping on tomorrow to talk about the anniversary of their film, which is Exists. If you guys have seen it, the found footage of Bigfoot film. Um, Came out in 2009. Like I said, 15th anniversary. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to happen tomorrow at 11:45 Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. 8:45 Pacific Standard Time. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you soon.
Peace.